guys, how's it going? Welcome back to part 2 of our Flower Alley series where I'm planting up 10 of the exact same container, but they're all going to look different, all different flowers, and they're all very simple, utilizing only 3 or 4 plants per pot. These are 14-inch pots right here. And I think it'll be just really fun just to see some different ideas of simple things that you can do in your own garden for really big impact. And it's going to be a learning experience, I think, as well, because I'm growing some things I've never grown before and pairing things together that I've never paired before. So I think especially if you guys want to follow along this year as we give you updates, you might be able to glean some information for yourselves if you've never grown some of these things as well. So we have put out one video already. We will link it down below. And I planted the first 2 containers in that video. I also explained how I'm setting up my drip and all of that. So if you want to learn more about that, check out that video. But I'm going to go ahead and get this pot prepped so we can get right into the plants. So the centerpiece plant in this container is going to be a grass, and I think that I'm pushing it a little bit with this plant choice because this grass wants to get big. But I think since it's going to be in competition with other plants and it's in a smaller reservoir, it might not get as big as it normally does in huge containers. But I just really wanted to try this out. This is a Skyrocket Pentas, which I'm using a lot of this year. I had such phenomenal luck with mine last year. They seem to grow more thin than the purple fountain grass. You know, by the end of the season, purple fountain grass kind of wants to lay out a little bit and be really wide. This one for me, and I don't know if it was a one-off, but last year it stayed in this really strictly, and everywhere I had it, it was strictly upright, like a very vase-shaped grass, and I really liked that growth habit. They usually want to grow like 3 feet tall, no, almost 24 to 30 inches tall, so they don't get as big as the purple fountain grass either, so that might have something to do with how they stay a little bit more tight. But I'm going to create the centerpiece, or plant the centerpiece, I should say, right in the back of this container. It's such a beautiful structure. I love it. And then in this container, I'm actually growing things I've grown before, but one of them is new this year. I had a chance to use this Super Bells last year, but I think it's new this year in garden centers. This is a Super Bells called Double Blue. I love any double flower. Those of you who've watched our videos for long enough know this about me. And I had really good luck with it. I put it in a window box on our tool shed, and it seemed to like that area really well. And I think it's going to be a really pretty spiller kind of, and it kind of in the flower box, it was up a little ways too. Yeah, 6 to 12 inches tall, so it could potentially form a nice big kind of filler and spiller layer. And then, now this one, you either love it or you hate it, and I love it. This is a Dicondra Silver Falls. This is the most, this and Creeping Jenny are the most like flat weeping spiller plants that you could ever have in a container. I love it because they look tucked in no matter what you do. So like this one will kind of fill in over the top, and then you'll just see this kind of cascade of icy blue foliage coming out the front. And it's really easy to tuck into. So once it gets longer, you can either trim it or you can kind of tuck it up underneath maybe the next plant that I'm going to put in here. And so then more tendrils are coming out on either side of the Super Bells or the Superbina that I'm using. I just find them to be really beautiful plants. And I like having that foliage accent as well. Okay, now for our last plant, this is a Superbina called Sparkling Amethyst. Isn't that beautiful? I put this last year, and this one may be new this year as well, or maybe it was new last year, but whoops, I used it in containers and in the landscape last year, and I had really good luck with both of them. They were behind our gazebo. In fact, I put this one with a Supertunia Bordeaux, and there was a Prince Tut in the center, and it was so pretty. It was a beautiful blend. And then I had like 2 or 3 extra after I was done with that project. So I just popped them in the ground kind of around the base of that pot in that area. So you kind of had like a repeat of that color, and it was really beautiful. And that does it for this container. Now the Superbina, you can clearly see that it's a filler, and then it will kind of spill over the side. For Superbina, for me, it's more of a kind of a stiff. It doesn't obviously drape like this one does or like the Super Bells will, but it will have a slight draping effect. And then of course our centerpiece will fill in here pretty quickly. So we will put our drip around the container here and get it tacked down with landscape staples, and we can move on to pot number 2. Drip system is key, I think, in so many different situations, especially if you're wanting to do something like this, where you're wanting to run an experiment, having everything be uniform and consistent, plants just thrive on that. They thrive on the consistency, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier for us to not have to man every pot every single day and make sure that they get moisture. These are all on a timer, and it makes it very easy. Also, while I'm on the subject of drip system and containers, if you've never set yours up on a drip system before, I would highly recommend you trying the WaterWise kit. That's from Proven Winners. It was my first experience putting drip to our containers. I had never set up drip in any of my containers until we moved into this house. I got my hands on one of their kits, and it comes with everything that you need, including a picture of how it's supposed to look and like kind of a diagram of how you could set up your pots. And it was super helpful to me to not have to go hunting for all the parts that I needed. They were all there. So we will link that down below if that's of interest to you. But it's a really good place for beginners or for people who just don't want to have to think about it. They can just get the kit and they know they've got everything they need to get it done. Okay, so now we'll get set up for the second container. On this second container, I'm gonna work from front to back here because it's a little bit easier. I'm gonna start with our Bacopa called Snowstorm Snow Globe. This is a beautiful plant, and the thing I like about it is that some Bacopas have really small flowers. These have huge white flowers on them, and they are one of the more cold tolerant plants. Like, you can put them in early on in the season and have them go through usually the fall, and they just keep on blooming. My experience with these is that if you let them dry down, they're kind of hard to recuperate. I don't know if that's everybody else's experience or just mine, but I really want to keep trying. In fact, this whole container, 2 of the plants in this container are ones I'm working on getting better at growing. I've also tried this one in the ground and don't have very good luck. So I think that this is better suited for containers. That's just based on my personal opinion here, but it's a beautiful trailing plant that I've used quite a bit of this year. So I'm excited to get some more experience under my belt. And I think it's gonna be especially beautiful with this pot. I think that's really classic looking. The natural concrete with the beautiful green and white. All right, the second plant here is a Supertunia called Raspberry Rush. And it's a fairly new one, and it's beautiful, and I've never grown it before, not this particular one. I think I put it in some containers that didn't end up staying at our house last year, so I didn't personally like grow them on and see how they did, but they're really like vivid, bright, kind of but deep pink at the same time, and then some of the flowers have kind of this white flecking in them. I don't know if you can see that in there, but there's like kind of a white flecking line that adds a little bit of visual interest, and I think this one will be really beautiful paired up with this because of the white in that bloom. They kind of go together. Beautiful spiller plants, and this Supertunia will fill in here too. So I'm expecting this one to kind of drape a little bit more, and this one to kind of fill in over the top and then drape over the side. And then my last plant, so there's just 3 plants in this arrangement. Again, I put too much soil in this container. It's a Pentas, which were brand new plants to me last year. It's a type of Egyptian starflower, I believe, and I think that these are really popular in the South because they're very heat and drought tolerant. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it was the first time I'd actually ever seen this plant last year when I got them in the spring. So this is called Sunstar Pink, and I think it's beautiful. I mean, this whole arrangement is very, I don't know, I like all the different shades of pink together. And this one will be my thriller in the back part of this container. So they grow like 20-ish, 22 inches tall. So it should be this beautiful, nice plant in here. Now, I grew Pentas in the ground and in containers last year. I did not have very great luck with it in containers, but I had excellent luck with it in the landscape. So we're still like working on our relationship here. I mean, these plants, these 2 in particular, I'm really hoping that I can get the hang of better this year. So if you guys have any tips for me, let me know. But I do know the Pentas that did really well in my landscape, they were always covered with pollinators. I mean, they attracted the bees, butterflies. I mean, it was just a really beautiful plant in the landscape, and they don't grow so huge that they take over, which I really like as well. Like, I think that these 3 are going to be very compatible in here. And none of the plants that I'm using need to be deadheaded either. I guess I should mention that. All of them will continue blooming without being deadheaded, so they're all very low maintenance, other than the fact that they will want consistent water, which we will have handled because of our drip system. In fact, I should just go ahead and get this one set up. But they will also need consistent fertilizing. So we do a weekly water-soluble fertilizer. We just choose a day, which happens to be Fridays for us, and that's the day everything gets fertilizer. And we try to stick to that schedule as closely as possible, and we always get the best results from our plants if we do that. So that's it for today's video, kind of more cool toned and almost monochromatic pots. We've got pink with a little bit of white, and then this one's got blue mostly, or purple. So they're very fun and very different. And stay tuned for the next ones. We've got 6 more pots to plant, which we may end up just doing in 2 videos and plant 3 and 3. It just kind of depends on how the schedule works out. We have lots of projects going on, but this one I was just so excited about. So I hope that this gave you some ideas, maybe a place to start when you're picking out stuff for your planters for this year or next year, depending on when you're watching this. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. See you later. Bye.